Hey, friends, welcome to a new episode of Conversations Life Science Leaders Aren't Having. Today, we have the privilege to welcome Mehmet Baha. He goes by Baha, as you will hear. Baha is a world renowned coach, teacher, and consultant, specifically around psychological safety and creating cultures that are deeply human and bring humanity into the workplace, as well as high performance. They're not mutually exclusive, as you'll hear Baha talk in our conversation. Who Baha is to me is the word ease. Just spending a few minutes with him, you feel this essence of ease just flow from the way he speaks. And if you watch the YouTube video of our conversation, of his affect and his body language, just puts me as his conversation partner at ease. And I can only imagine this is a part of who he is and what he brings to his clients that makes him so successful. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. Baha, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you with us today. You are a unique guest, as I think our audience will hear through the conversation. So extremely excited to have you. Welcome.
Likewise, Jeff. Thanks for the invitation.
So I just did a brief introduction of who you are to me. Why don't you start us off and let us know what you're up to in the world?
What I am up to in the world, maybe I can share briefly who I am and then we start from there. My name is Baha. Actually, Baha is my last name and everyone calls me Baha. And I am based in Germany, Berlin, for the last 11 years. I am originally from Cyprus. And around 20 years ago, I got scholarship from Fulbright. Then I did my master's in the US on the topic of conflict resolution. Then I started working around the world and in different countries. And I was one of the first employees of Facebook in Europe. That was around 16 years ago. It was a special experience. At that time, the company had a very high level of psychological safety, meeting with Mark Zuckerberg, contributing to the exponential growth of the company, mentoring employees. After 4 years at Facebook, I moved to Germany and I started working for a German tech company. I was working directly with the CEO and I was in charge of expanding partners in Latin America, India, Spain, and Middle East. By the way, this German company does not exist anymore. Apple acquired the company. And for the last 7-8 years, I'm a trainer, consultant, speaker on the topic of psychological safety. So I do learning sessions around the world in 4 languages, English, Spanish, Turkish, and German. And I have written 2 books on business. The latest book is called Creating Psychological Safety at Work. And in my free time, I love to travel with my family, play percussion. I'm a musician. And also play basketball with my 8-year-old daughter.
And here we're recording this really at the entryway of 2025. In the world of your work, what are the areas of psychological safety that, let's say, trending, but are most that are most being asked of you?
Yeah, there are basically 3 things that are trending at the moment. First, employee well-being. Second, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And third, artificial intelligence. Let's start with the first one, burnout, employee well-being. Some of the topics in that are employees feeling burned out. And especially we as leaders, managers, we play a crucial role in creating psychological safety. And to create that, first of all, psychological safety is a workplace where employees feel safe to express their questions, concerns, ideas, and mistakes. So what does it mean in the context of employee well-being? For us as leaders and managers to listen to our employees, understand their concerns, give them space to them, get to know them at a personal level, involve them in decision making in certain aspects of the work. This way we can gain not only their mind but also their hearts, and employees can feel more empowered, can feel safer and stronger in the work, and less absenteeism at work. So that's the first aspect, employee well-being. The second one is about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now it's a big topic, especially in the US, the changes going on. Based on my experience, successful companies, leading companies who want to maintain their edge still keep investing in diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does it mean for us as leaders, managers, in relation to psychological safety? How can we create an inclusive work culture where employees can express their ideas, questions, concerns? Especially in pharma industry, life sciences, we need innovation. Without getting the ideas of our employees, we cannot really innovate, come up with ideas. So we need to ask our employees who think differently on this, who thinks differently. When someone expresses a dissenting view, we need to encourage them, give them space to come up with ideas. And the third point is artificial intelligence. As you know, this is a big topic at the moment. Artificial intelligence is improving its intelligence. It's like doubling every 6 months. And the current level of AI is at the level of a very intelligent, super intelligent person at the moment. And imagine that in 2 years. It's incredible potential in terms of analysis, doing work, data, preparing documents, going through millions of documents. It's a huge power. Now, the question is, in this world of rapid technological advancements, AI, how can we create psychological safety? So what will remain to us in the coming years will be our humanity. AI will anyways do analysis and research, etc. What we need to focus on is our authenticity. How can we as employees, human beings, leaders, managers, show authenticity? How can we show compassion to others, to our employees? How can we demonstrate empathy? So these 3 points, employee well-being, diversity, equity, inclusion, and AI, are concepts related to psychological safety, and organizations or leaders who will leave a legacy behind will be those who create psychological safety in today's world.
I find myself curious about your story, Baha, and deeper than your resume and the journey that you weekly outlined is your personal journey to the passion you have around psychological safety, the deep belief that it comes very clearly when we just spend a few minutes together, is what's your story in this journey to where you got and where you are today with psychological safety, and feel free to go back as far as you would like to childhood and just the evolution and the formation of your deep belief in the importance of this.
Yeah, good question. So basically, 2 points come to my mind. One of them is about my experience working at companies with high level of psychological safety and without or with very low level of psychological safety. And the second one is about my, again, sort of background, how I started in this business of training and consulting. Let's start with the first one, my experience. Once I worked at one company and I dared to ask a question to my manager. And then his response to me was, "That's a stupid question." And at that moment, I didn't know how to react. I felt powerless. And since then, I didn't ask him many questions because I was afraid of getting that reaction. What is more, other employees started to imitate this in the workplace. So you ask a question, and then you are likely to get a reply. That's a stupid question. It was a workplace, it was a toxic work culture. By the way, this company was always number 2 in the world in its area and never number 1. Of course, there are many reasons for this, and one of the key reasons is the lack of psychological safety in the workplace. So I had that experience. In contrast to that, I worked at Facebook, especially in the beginning. It was an incredible working environment. Of course, it was not a paradise. It had its own challenges as well. And at the same time, it was a workplace where employees were encouraged to speak up, bring up ideas. I remember we had one internal page, like internal Facebook page, where employees every day share any idea that they have to improve the business. And there are special teams monitoring that group to come up with ideas, select ideas, and work on them. So it was two different opposites. And going through that, it made me even realize the importance of psychological safety. That's point number 1.
So could I ask about, because I'm always curious about that person, that Baha at that age, what was shaping in your mind? You could take the toxic, or you take either one. What was starting to shape in your mind and in your heart around your beliefs around leadership at that, if you can remember, in those moments?
Yeah. So going back to the bad experience, what was shaping in my mind about leadership? So that was leadership, or that organization was based on fear. And I was performing in the short term really well because of the fear. But in the long term, the organization lost me as a person because I resigned. And that was a painful experience because trying to go there every day, I used to meditate in the morning to be able to have energy to withstand that pressure and the environment. And after, of course, resigning and then starting my own business, it was a relief. And then to see, okay, how can I contribute to a world where organizations, leaders, employees can be more aware of this? And actually, the starting point was not psychological safety. When I started in 2016, I started with the topic conflict resolution. That's what I did my master's on. And I realized that the conflict resolution, the phrase, has a negative connotation. In many organizations, they didn't want to focus on that. So I changed it to collaborative leadership. And then in 2016, I created a model on collaborative leadership. And one part of it, back then, 2016, when psychological safety was not popular, one part of it was on psychological safety. And the key point was pandemic, 2020. I did a learning session online. Many participants were from the US, VP level directors, managers. And to my surprise, the session got very high rated. And since then, I focused more and more on psychological safety. So my previous experience in organizations plus this journey from conflict resolution, collaboration, and then pandemic, psychological safety, and then it started to increase.
It's interesting, as you acknowledged, the fear-based environment actually was, for a short time, a catalyst for high performance. And then you reached a point of diminishing returns. That environment created a situation of diminishing returns.
Exactly.
Where your productivity was not continuing to and performance was not continuing to improve. It was actually degrading until the point that you resigned. And so it's just fascinating, this idea that the fear-based model and low psychological safety for a time actually works. And I would imagine, I'm curious, as you observe organizations who are operating in that type of model, that they are it's self-fulfilling to a degree. What are you hearing in those, as you observe, or in those conversations with those type of environments? What are the conversations before they have an epiphany of sorts to change? What are the conversations that are happening in those environments, those fear-based, low psychological
Yeah.
safety environments?
Yeah, I can share one example with you. I had this conversation yesterday, and it's a typical case. It's not specific on a country. But we can find it in the US, Canada, Europe, whatever. So the organization approached to me and we have a conversation. The topic is on psychological safety. And the decision maker, it's a very typical conversation. The decision maker said to me, the employees are not listening to us. They don't follow the rules, etc. So come and help us so that they follow the rules. Throughout the conversation, I was asking them questions to see what's the relationship of managers, leaders with the employees. To what extent do leaders listen to the employees? To what extent do the leaders, managers know the concerns of employees, etc.? But in the end, that person didn't understand my questions. And another example is that about speaking up. It's very typical. Leaders notice that employees do not speak up in meetings. It's silence. So typically, some of them come to me and they say, come and give us training so that employees, give the training to employees so that employees speak up. Actually, it's the other way around. The leaders and managers need to be part of these trainings in addition to employees, because leaders, managers play a crucial role in creating this space of psychological safety. So in these organizations with low levels of psychological safety, if leaders and managers are conscious and are willing to do the work and are open to find out their blind spots, we are all human beings. No one is perfect. We all have blind spots. And then we can work on this. But in many cases, some of them are not aware of this and they point the finger to employees, and then they spend, training resources on only employees without really going to the root cause. And it's not really useful for them either.
Mm. Staying for a moment with your story, Baha, one of our favorite quotes on the show is the reward of the work we do is not what we get, but who we become. As you now have been doing this work for over this stage of your life, but even previous, I'm curious, who have you become?
It's a philosophical question. Who have I become? I'm now more than 40. I'll be 42 later this year. So in the end of the year. So who have I become? I become, I think, a person who is takes time before the triggers. When a trigger happens, I take the time and then maybe respond more calmly. I think it's about the experience as well, the life. So not reacting quickly to the triggers in the context of conversations, communication, etc. And second, I think I have become, especially living in Germany, to be direct and at the same time to be kind and compassionate. Let's say a low performance or whatever, to deal with the issue, a hard conversation, do it in a way without offending others, appreciating them, and at the same time making the point clearly.
You mentioned your dad to a basketball playing daughter. I'm wondering, to what degree has being a parent contributed to your growth, and then ultimately also to how you show up for your clients.
Yeah. Being a parent, especially in the first stages, the infancy, the baby, she couldn't, waking up at night. So starting from the birth, it made me be more aware of my priorities, how in terms of the work, family, how to be more efficient, focus on it, not waste time on things which are not in my priority. So the first point is about, time management, priorities, family and work, balancing that. And the second point is my daughter is at the moment 8 years old. So she's curious. She asks questions. And so that inspires me, the curiosity, and also maybe lack of expectations. The happiness is sometimes when we do not have expectations, we can be happy in our lives. Let me give you an example. 1 year ago, we went to one country with the family. And then my wife had some friends there. And the friends, without asking us, created a schedule of trip in that city, but doing things that didn't interest us at all. Neither my wife nor myself. So we were frustrated. Despite saying this to the friend, he kept doing the same activities. And I was a bit, and my wife as well, frustrated with this because, it's a trip for us. And I was observing my daughter. She was super happy, enjoying each and every moment. So curiosity, time management also, she inspires me in that sense, sometimes not having expectations and enjoying the moment.
Mm. It strikes me of maybe not a full dose of that is needed for leaders in a high pressure environment of work, but it just inspires me to think of each of those elements of enjoying the moment, managing priorities, responding, not reacting. It feels like many leaders today could use a dose of that in their worlds.
Exactly, especially the curiosity part, asking questions rather than making judgments. In many traditional business schools, students in MBA, they learn to make decisions. They are smart, we can make decisions, get the data, make the decision, etc. And in the business world, we need to show curiosity, understand others, involve them in decision making, rather than judging others, showing interest, etc. So it's really important. And as we grow, sometimes we might lose this curiosity element, and it's super important. Also to innovate, curiosity ourselves, who I am, who am I? Curiosity about others. Who are my employees? What are their strengths? What do they need? Curiosity about our environment, let's say research and development, innovation. Curiosity about, new ideas, to bring them, test them, try them, get feedback and improve. So it's super important.
Mm. I want to pull a thread from something you described earlier, the DEI work that you're doing here in the States. It's very headline. It's in the headlines where, because of the mandates and the guidelines and mandates for DEI have been eliminated or reduced, that DEI policies have been set aside by major corporations. I'm wondering, in the absence of a legal element or a mandate for DEI policies or practices, what do you have to say to those leaders who are not obliged by those guidelines or mandates any longer? What do you have? What would you like to say to those leaders who are deciding to set aside a policy or a practice?
Yeah. As organizations, as human beings, or as leaders, I think we need to go beyond what we see on television or in the society. We need to open the way for others. Point one. And point two, as I mentioned in the beginning, leading organizations still keep investing in DEI because they know that if they can create an inclusive work culture, then they can be more successful, especially when they have global customers, multiple locations. It's crucial for them to tap into diverse employees. And having diverse employees is not enough. We need to include them. So those organizations who invest in DEI in the long term will win even more. So it's an investment worth taking. There is a report on McKinsey which analyzed some organizations, their investment in DEI, and it correlated that with improved financial performance.
We'd love to share that in the show notes if you
let me check that and I can send it to you.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Baha, the name of the show is Conversations Life Science Leaders Aren't Having. And you do serve leaders in organizations in the life science space. When you hear me frame the name of the show, what's the first thing that comes to mind? The conversations that they aren't having or they're not having enough of?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to my mind, conversations that maybe is not had, that maybe people are not having, is the question on how to create momentum. Let's say we want to create a change, improve our work culture, create a more collaborative work culture where people feel safe, psychologically safe. In many cases, leaders talk about how to deal with resistance. Rather than talking about that, the main conversation should be around how can we create a positive momentum on this. And the way to do it is based on movers, movables, and immovables. So there are basically three groups of employees in organizations. Movers, who are open to change, improving the work culture, enthusiastic about this. Movables are in the middle. They are neutrals. They sit on the fence and they say, oh, again, Jeff came, new CEO, and he came up with, he or she, Allison, whatever, Jessica, came up with a new idea. And then we are not sure if this will work. Let's wait and see. So they are in the middle, neutrals. Immovables are resistors. They resist to this and they say, status quo is better. Why are we changing this? Why do we need, again, collaboration or psychological safety? They resist to this. And in many cases, the conversations revolve around how can we deal with this resistance. And more effective approach is to start with movers, enthusiastic employees, work with them, create small wins, present these small wins to others, gain movables in the middle, then we create this momentum. And resistors, immovables, we listen to them, we understand them. And the main focus is to work with movers, get small wins, gain movables, and create a positive momentum. That is how we can improve our work culture. And this should be the conversation that we need to have, how to create a positive momentum.
So take us into a conversation with one of your clients about creating momentum. Tell us number one, what their request was, and number two, then how are you engaging in that conversation around creating this momentum?
So it's a real case. It's a global pharma company. I cannot mention the name due to the work that we do. So the challenge was this organization had one director and his management style was command and control. A lot of focus on control. Different teams in that organization were not sharing information with one another. They were not even employees saying hi to each other. Information was not flowing. And it was basically a toxic workplace and employees started to leave the organization. And then later this director left the organization and a new director came. And the new director noticed this work environment where employees do not share information with one another. They are not open and they don't say hi to each other. And anyways, they contacted me and the new director said to me, look, what I notice is there is a very low level of psychological safety in this workplace, and I would like to change that. I would like to create a work environment which is better because we need to hit our targets. With this environment, we are behind the targets. Now we need to be high performing. So what we did was first using a survey, psychological safety survey, anonymously. Employees filled that in, and then we got data. As expected, the level of psychological safety was low, which was expected. And then I did a workshop for all the employees. And all the employees attended that. I talked about importance of collaboration, inspiring stories, practices. And after that session, which was to inspire them, and also shared in that session with them the results of the report. Low psychological safety. We need to, address the issue. We need to talk about the gorilla in the room. And after the workshop, I divided participants into groups to answer 3 questions with post-it notes. The first question: what does an ideal team collaboration look like in our organization? So they write it on post-it notes, put it on the walls. And then after that, the second question: what are some obstacles to creating this ideal team collaboration? Now it is their time to complain. Work pressure from the management, a lot of workload, we are not listened to, we are not appreciated, whatever. Third question: what can we as employees, as individuals, do to create this ideal team collaboration? Now writing action items. So they wrote action items, and after writing those action items, I drew on the wall x-axis and y-axis. On y-axis, easiness to implement those action items, easy to hard. X-axis, time, short-term versus long-term. And then I requested participants to put their action items on that graph to be able to find the low-hanging fruits, relatively easy ideas to be done in short term within next 3 to 4 weeks. And after that, the management got those ideas and started implementing that. And in that workshop plus breakout sessions, we also identified who are the movers. And then started working with the movers. Now the company is currently implementing the ideas. And the next stage is to do learning sessions once every 2 months on different aspects of psychological safety, feedback, trust, high-performing teams, etc. And in the end of 8 months, to do again an anonymous survey to see the improvement in the level of psychological safety.
This director, the new director that invited you in and now needed your support, how are you coaching that person?
So I didn't have special, coaching sessions with him in this case. The positive point is that based on my observation, he seems to be he seems to have the right mindset. He wants to start a new page, fresh perspective. And I'm not doing coaching for him at the moment because it seems like, he's on the right path anyways.
So if you were, just imagine you were to be engaged in a coaching conversation with him, what are the questions that and maybe you pull from other coaching that you've done, but what are the questions that you're asking him post the workshop and the breakout and the post-it note exercise, the action items? What are the questions that you're asking him or that you might ask him in a coaching conversation?
Yeah. So a number of questions, starting with the first one. Let's say the leader manager tells me about a challenge, and then I ask, okay, what did you do to solve it? Second question, how did you do it? Third, what are the results that you got? Fourth, from the perspective of the other person, how did the other person perceive it? So questions like that, and then based on the answer, so what could be a better way to do it? What do you need to be able to do it better next time? What will be your next step? What will be your action item on this? And after that, again, reflection. How did it go? What did you do? What are the results? And how did the other person perceive it? What else could you have done it to improve it, etc. So the idea is to make the person, assuming that the person is open to that, be aware on this, and then improve the behavior or the action for the next time.
Baha, 2025 is here, and it is as challenging as of a year as ever, just given the global dynamic of our world, divisiveness of our world, the challenges for organizations. If you were to plant the seed in the mind of every leader across the globe, it's quite a power that I'm giving you in this moment. One conversation that they were going to have and consistently have throughout the year, what's that one conversation that you want to plant the seed for in the minds of all these leaders?
Yeah. How can we engage our employees? How can we listen to them? How can we show humanity while also expecting high standards? I think these are key questions, and especially well-being of employees. And it was during pandemic, and there were two examples. One organization had to go through layoffs. So I'm connecting this point to how to be human in this AI age. And that organization sent an automatic email to the employees who would be fired. And the employees clicked on the link, and then they saw a pre-recorded video message about, them getting laid off, losing their jobs. And then suddenly they lost access to the company's system. Inhumane way, but very efficient way of laying off employees. On the other hand, there is another organization, Stripe, during the pandemic as well. They did it in a humane way, having one-on-ones with the employees, explaining them the situation, the reasons, also saying apologies. This was the founders. It was our decision. We couldn't foresee this. And to make it easy for you in this, period, you can keep your laptops. We are going to provide you with services to find new jobs. We are going to create new email addresses for you, alumni email address, so that we stay in touch, etc. They provided a impressive list of options and benefits to employees, and they did it in a humane way. So long story short, in today's time, how can we be humane, keep our humanity, compassion, and at the same time achieve high performance? That's a key conversation to have.
I love that. So simple, but not easy.
Yeah.
Baha, as we wrap up here, what would you love to highlight about what you're working on, or something that's coming in your work? What would you love to highlight?
Yeah, I think my latest book, Creating Psychological Safety at Work, it's based on 16, 32, and 64. So 16 inspiring examples from around the world, 32 practical tools and approaches to create psychological safety, and 64 thought-provoking questions that you can respond to and create your psychological safety action plans and strategy. So feel free to check out the book and to learn more about this and make the world of work a better place, one person at a time.
I love it. We'll put the link to where they can find that book and order it. I love it. I'm going to order it myself. This has been a joy. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your heart, that we got to dig into these really important questions. So thank you so much.
It was my pleasure, Jeff. Thank you for the invitation.